Hi, and welcome to another short educational video from New Century Planning Associates. My name is Bob Ryerson. I'm the president and founder of New Century, and I am pleased today to have Charles Rosenberg with us. Charlie directs the sales and marketing of Intact Future Plan. Intact, Charles, has been around since forever, right? 1977?
Not me, but yeah, the firm's been around since 77.
Your predecessors. And you oversee,
correct.
it says here, you oversee a big staff, 65 professional pension consultants and marketing personnel. You are a certified retirement counselor and certified retirement administrator, and other letters behind your name. So we are pleased to have you today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. So we have some great stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, basically I wanted to talk to you, Charles, today about the fact that it's the spring of 23 here. The government the last couple of years has really, I think you'll agree, has tried to show people they're serious about helping people save for retirement. There's been some changes. They call them Secure Act 1 and Secure Act 2. Can you tell us briefly, in your view as the retirement planning professional, what is the good news in Secure Act 1 and then more recently in Secure Act 2, which is just a couple of months ago?
Okay, great. Well, thank you for giving me the platform here again. When we talk about the Secure Act, I'm coming from the position of a retirement plan practitioner. So what we do is we set up retirement plans in an optimal fashion for small to mid-sized business owners. That's where I'm coming from. So the Secure Act, both 1 and 2, had many provisions that applies to individuals, that applies to, larger plans, audited plans. I'm really talking about from the perspective of a small business owner looking to save for retirement. So, Bob, you're absolutely correct. Overall, high level, in 2019, when Secure 1.0 came out, that was a big shot in the arm for retirement planning, right? So the government's basically saying, we realize that people did not save for retirement. We've got to really help the average worker that works for a company that does not have a pension plan, like in the days of the late 70s. Right. As of today, what can we do to set that up? So Secure 1.0, really, I would say the highlight of that was the fact that they increased the credits that business owners can take for setting up a retirement plan, up to $5,000 a year, whereas the prior year was $500. So they were telling a business owner, hey, go ahead and hire my firm, Intact, or any other qualified third-party administrative actuarial firm, and we're going to give you up to $5,000. However, you got to do the following. One of them was automatic enrollment. So again, all signs pointing to we want that average participant to be automatic enrolled in the plan. And if you do that, we're going to give you another $500 for that feature. So we're going to talk about that some more. So that was the high level. So 1.0 really gave us the shot in the arm, right. Gave us the impetus to start saving more money. At the end of last year, 12/29/22 to be exact, there was a huge shot in the arm, a huge, plethora of items that have come down, a lot of items we don't even know how to deal with. But really all signs pointing to, and we're going to talk about it some more, how to save more money for retirement.
And that's true, and we were a little surprised that was the big 1.7 trillion at the end of 22. Before we get to details on that, can you just explain for people, they hear this phrase ERISA plan, is that the same as a qualified plan in plain English?
Yes, in plain English, any plan that is governed by ERISA, which is the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, i.e. that there's oversight, that the IRS and Department of Labor have oversight on it, is considered a qualified plan. Versus a non-qualified plan, where we have, specifically in larger companies, they'll set up a plan that they'll say, hey, Bob, you're a great employee. We want to put away $20,000 a year for you specifically and not have any qualified discrimination testing. So what makes it a qualified plan is that it's governed by ERISA and it has a lot of the technical components that we, as our technical consulting firm, do for these plans.
Okay, great. An IRA is not a qualified plan.
An IRA is not a qualified plan. That's correct.
Okay, so that's the distinction. So let's talk about the good news in Secure Act 2. Basically, and you probably know this stuff off the top of your head, they really increased for people 50 and older who may be feeling they're a little behind where they want to be. They increased the contribution limits, right? And that also applies, I think, to SEPs and Simples, but certainly to 401ks and 403bs and then 457s, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And I would say that, and I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on the increased limits because that is a moving target.
Right.
I would say if we look back at the last 5 years, we've seen a very much an increased trajectory of people putting away more money. So now, with Secure 2.0, that's obviously amplified. Today, someone who's over the age of 50 can put away upwards of $30,000 in a 401k plan. Unheard of, 5 years ago.
Exactly.
So we're definitely moving in the right direction because, a phone call I get literally every day of the week. How do I put away money? I've got 10 years to retirement. Help me put away a lot more money.
Right. And another trend that I think is positive, and I wanted to get your take on this, we are big advocates, as you know, of Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, Roth conversions. How easy is it for a company to file an amendment to add a Roth component to their qualified plan? I imagine you guys do that all the time. And off the top of your head, what percentage of medium to large size companies now have Roth options?
Yeah, I would say you're definitely heading in the right direction. I would say 100% of the plans that we administer, we incorporate the Roth option.
Wow,
There's no
beautiful.
reason not to do that.
Right, beautiful.
Okay? And one of the things that people always ask me is like, what makes you unique? What's your value proposition? And I think that's the value proposition, right? So when you go to a check the box type of plan, they're not necessarily consulting with the client, just like you do with yours, and say, hey, you want to consider the Roth contribution. I would say 100% of our 401ks have that in it. If we take over a plan that does not have it in it, it's a minor amendment, very simple to do. It's not a big deal. And as you said, I encourage everybody at least to have the option, whether they use it or not. That's what they should be talking to you about, if it makes sense for them or not. But kind of jumping ahead, if you don't mind,
Sure.
I think the big item with the Roth is that the government, for the first time, which really blew us, how we get so excited about these rules, is that the employer contribution. So whereas before a Roth 401k was only employee driven, the Roth contribution now is applicable to the employer side. Now, don't ask me about the technicalities. Don't ask me about the record keeping. The point is that they enacted the law that now if my company is giving me a $5,000 match, I could choose to pay the taxes on that match today, and that money would grow tax-free forever, plus many other options.
Right. So that hit us the same way. We couldn't believe it because that is big news. It was always that even if somebody was doing 100% in Roth, the match was traditional, deferred. So this is it not clear until 24 maybe, or is that going to be clear in 23, do you think?
Believe it or not, it is applicable in 2023. We have zero guidance on how to deal with it.
Okay.
So, we're assuming that practically it's going to start happening in 24. We're going to have to do amendments to plans. I mean, there's a lot of things, and most of the things, the record keepers, the people that actually, maintain the records, they're going to have to start segregating that money, Roth money, taxable money. So I think it's going to be a year or so till we actually see it becoming more popular.
Okay. But we agree. It's big news. We sit here at this conference table every week with people who've got enormous amounts of money in the deferred world. And I think for somebody, 55 and under, who can, if they're willing to pay the taxes, who can have the foresight to build that big mountain of money and make it tax-free forever, it's really good news. Another thing I wanted to mention to you is, and we were a little surprised at this, I wanted to get your take on this. The country's $31 trillion in the hole. We have a rapidly aging population, and yet they keep moving out the required minimum distribution age. I think I know why, but what's your take? Were you surprised that they went to 73? They're going to go to 75? You would think, off the top of our heads, the government is desperate for money, but they're pushing it out.
Yeah, I would think the minimum distribution is probably the most, abused item. I think people are very ticked off by it. Longevity is much greater today. That's my take on it. I find a lot of just not being done right. A lot of people not taking it. So there were two things that happened. They increased the age, eventually it's going to go to age 75. But the second thing is the penalty for mismanagement of the RMD is down to 10% if you fix it on your own. Whereas today it's 50% excise tax. So I think that's coming from, and certainly want to hear your take on it, but I think it's coming from the point of people are mismanaging it anyway. Let's make it easier for people. Let's make it more practical. interested in your take.
Yeah, no, I agree. Quick anecdotal story. A couple of years ago, I had an attorney in his early 60s, and his father was in his late 80s, early 90s, and I just coincidentally asked him, hey, is your father okay with his RMDs? And he said, what's that? So, uh-oh. So, if you have 10 or 15 retirement accounts in your early 70s, that's a little different than your late 80s, early 90s. So this 50% penalty was the stiffest thing in the code. It was brutal, And so I think you're right. I think that has really helped, and they got a lot of flack. But I'll tell you why I think they're okay moving this out to 73 and 75. They took away the stretch IRA. Now everybody's got to empty this thing out. It could be a monster. Another case for Roth conversions, right? Over 10 years, unless it's a spouse. So do you? I'm sure you let everybody know that's a big change. It's great. Everybody says, oh, we got more time on the RMD. Yeah, but you lost the stretch for the kids or nieces or nephews or whomever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more the planning world, right? So we don't necessarily get into the stretch IRAs.
Okay.
On our, we're more on the upfront how to amass the wealth. But, we definitely see a lot of advisors, putting their arms around that and really, being like you said, being more forefront about it and talking to clients about it.
Great. Okay, so how do you guys help employers on the qualified plan front generally? I think you started to go down the path, but this could be something from, and I guess I want to get your advice for somebody, a sole proprietor. Why would they do a solo 401k versus a SEP or a simple? Kind of give us a sense of, one person to 100, what Intact can do for them.
Yeah, so I'm just going to repeat a story that happened this morning. So I had a UBS advisor that just moved over from JP Morgan Chase. They had a client that had amassed $750,000 in a solo K plan that never filed to the IRS. They never did any discrimination testing, which they didn't really need to do, but we don't know that. They had zero guidance. And I think what we find in the community, and I say the community is just the tri-state area, there's a lot of business owners that will walk into anywhere. I don't want to pick on a local bank, but they'll walk into just a financial institution and say, I need a solo K. I need a simple IRA. Yet they're dealing with $1 million tax bill. And the value of bringing a team like you and I is we're actually evaluating what is it? What does their income look like? So, yeah, do they have a $1 million net income? Maybe they need to do a defined benefit plan. So here's someone who thinks that they want to do a simple IRA that can only put away $15,000 a year, and we're going to show them an opportunity to put away $400,000 a year, right? So the lack of being prudent by your own finances, and again, we're not talking just like your fee. Our fees are not exorbitant. I mean, it is a fee, but the point is that if I would put it into one word, the point is we're actually doing proactive consulting. So we're evaluating everybody's situation differently. There's no one size fits all in this shop.
No, I think that's beautifully said. Not one size fits all. And I think there's to be indelicate about it. There's ignorance, even if the guy's making $1 million. How would they know a defined benefit versus a solo? There's just not their knowledge. There's no reason for them to know it. So whatever fee they're paying you guys, it comes back to them in spades. And we have the other thing I would say more on our end than yours. Is we have people who have enormous amounts of money in the deferred world, and we make the case to them, hey, over the next 5 or 10 years, let's convert to the tax-free forever world. And people are so used to accumulating money and not paying taxes that the idea of paying some in advance is anathema to them, even if you show them the math. They really wrestle with it. It takes us months sometimes to get somebody to understand the value of that. But, from a legacy standpoint, I'm sure you agree that the odds of taxes increasing in the future are pretty high, given the country's financial conditions. So, I think Intact is the first place to go for somebody who's getting serious about retirement planning. Do you guys do consulting? Do you do filing for them every year? Do you touch base with them every so often? Or is it usually just a one-time situation, or it's ongoing?
No, absolutely. We actually, I would say that the heavy lifting is when we actually set the plan up, right? So
Sure.
Deciding the right plan. But I would say equally as heavy, depending on the client, is most of our clients are entrepreneurs, right? One year they're making $1 million, the next year they're making 500, the next year they're making 200. So how do we coach them through those different ebbs and flows to make sure that they're putting the right money. I just will say one other thing which is really important, and it's, again, whether it's my firm or any other firm that's just as qualified. With Roth specifically, there are so many nuances in the law. And I always say, I'm not even the smartest guy in the room. I hire a lot of smart people. We're 70 people today. We've got 4 actuaries on staff. There are so many nuances that we need to know. There's a new rule that just came into play about long-term part-time employees. So, for instance, in the old days, meaning prior to last year, we were able to exclude anybody that worked less than 1,000 hours. So on a simple or on a SEP plan, you can't exclude them. The IRS is bringing those worlds together where they're saying if you have someone that's with you X amount of years, working X amount of hours, we've got to bring them into the plan. The more complicated they make it, the more opportunities there are to find someone that's not compliant and to start going after that specific thing. For example, there's a rule out there that you have to contribute to a 401k plan within X amount of days of withholding. So I would say 95% of our clients are good about it. But for a long period of time, the DOL would come into every single audit and pull that as the first thing. And they would always go to the months of June and July because they knew that inevitably someone's on vacation and they're not going to follow the protocol that they're putting the money in within 2 or 3 days after payroll. So the world is getting more complex, but there's tremendous, and I say tremendous, to underline that opportunity to really save money, and the government's helping. The government now is, the IRS is now giving us a tax credit for the employer contribution for the first 3 years of the plan, unheard of. It means we're running, actually one of my smart actuaries is running a spreadsheet program where we literally could put in, I've got 10 employees, I'm going to do a $20,000 contribution as a match, and the tax credit is coming out to most of that money, that they're putting away. So the IRS is making it very attractive for us to put away money, and they're helping you, the client, pay me, the consultant, to do the work.
Tremendous.
To know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I wanted to get you on today. It's just a lot of good news and a little surprising. So a little complicated, but a lot of good news. So let's finish by, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
So the best way is, we've got a website, intactinc.com. My contact information is on it. My email, but my email is charles.rosenberg@futureplan.com. So we are part of a national organization called Future Plan, or my direct dial is area code 201-301-1030.
Beautiful, great. Charlie, thank you so much. A lot of great information, a lot of good news. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks for including us. Have a great day, everybody.
All right, take care.